recording, and then yeah, we can just go ahead and hop into the thing here. FGA, right?
That is correct.
All right.
Round 1. Capture the objective.
And last time we didn't. Did we? I don't think we went over Tracer before, did we?
No, we didn't. Last time we were focusing on Hanzo.
Alrighty. All right. So first off, this initial long flank round doesn't really accomplish too much. So you can kind of get the exact same effect immediately from right here. So if we just went from right here to basically the object of a flank or an off angle is to get to their back line or get to the peak characters in the back who are easy to kill. So for example here, that would be their on the Baptiste stripe, or maybe even the McCree or Junkrat. Right, we're not going to want to focus the monkey too much. We're not going to want to focus the Zarya too much because they're going to be hard to kill.
Yep.
McCree has a little bit more health. He has a flashbang, so we're going to try to avoid him. But the other three are fair game. Right now,
Yep.
us going on this off angle, our goal is to get to them, but we can pretty much just do that directly from here. Like, we can just walk to the side here and be directly on top of them, like, as soon as they walk in. But we instead opt for this, like, really long flank around, which doesn't really accomplish anything extra. Like, it doesn't really do anything for us, right? If we're
Yeah, for
thinking of, like,
sure.
what the objective is. This is just essentially wastes a lot of time where we're not really doing much. And then in that time, that means that, at least our team got a pick, but that could be going the opposite direction while we were at a disadvantage. And then we end up coming in and we're pretty much where we could have been to start off, right? So that's
Yep.
just a pretty unnecessary flank around. All right, no major mistakes there. It's all a tiny little reload thing, but that was it.
Okay.
All right, so this is a little bit too so that's first off with the timing, right? We're timing this where our team's not the fight hasn't really started yet, so our team's not a big distraction. And what that means is that literally their entire team is able to turn around and look at us all together, right? So if we go in right now before our team's fighting them, then they can set and 6 people look at us, which means that we're pressured faster, we're more likely to die, and they're going to force us out faster. Now compare that
Mhm.
to when, let's say, we let them walk in a little bit and they're fighting on the front line. Well, now their tanks can't turn around and they're going to be a lot more split in their attention. And when we do that, that means that we have a lot less pressure and our team has a lot less pressure, right? So we're helping both sides. Here, they're just
Gotcha.
going to have a ton of people looking at us. The second thing is that we're immediately going in directly on top of them when we don't really have a advantage to go in on. So basically, Tracer, she acts as what you call an opportunist. So Tracer likes to get aggressive when she sees somebody who's low, when somebody's out of position, when you make someone low by shooting them, when you get pulse bomb, right? When your team dives in, right? When you're basically looking for an opportunity to do something. When their entire team is grouped up, all full HP, the team fight hasn't started yet. There's literally no advantage we have here, no opportunity, and therefore us jumping right in their face isn't really something we want to do. So instead of what we could be doing here is give it a second, and then when we start poking at them, is to poke at them from a little bit away. So like for example, we could poke at them from here, right? Now this does pretty much the exact same effect. We're still shooting them, getting the same amount of damage in, but we're outside of stun range. We're gonna be a lot damaged, a lot less. It's going to be easier to back out, and we're not as aggressive. So this is just a little bit more of a passive approach until we see a reason to get aggressive, right?
Got it.
Okay. Make sure. So I've already seen this twice. Make sure that we're not blinking and then immediately recalling. So you can see that here in a moment. If we slow this down, is you're gonna blink out and then recall immediately. So therefore, that blink you just used was wasted, and that is the same thing for like blinking forwards, and I saw you do this earlier as well. So that's just a habit you don't want to do because that ends up wasting blinks. So before you make sure you're kind of thinking through, when are we using blink, when are we using recall, so that we're not using both at once, because then that just ends up wasting it when we could have just recalled there to start off.
Gotcha.
Okay, good job getting out there. Alright, so a lot of blink wasting, so blink management seeming like maybe ability management seeming like something to look at so far. But here we kind of jump in right on top of them, and then we immediately go for 2 blinks when, blinks, you have 2 purposes with blinks. First, you have mobility to get somewhere fast, and 2, you have like dodging, right? And dodging out abilities, dodging attacks. Here, neither of those purposes is really served because it doesn't seem that we realize it's just Mercy and May, right? So this comes into awareness, right? Making sure you're paying attention to where's the enemy team. Here, if we realize that Mercy is looking this direction and May is ice blocked, then we have no reason to use 2 blinks there, and therefore we're not wasting our blinks, right? So we just want to make sure we're not wasting our blinks and we're not holding on to them, or not wasting them, using them like that. So far, mechanics I've seen pretty solid, though a lot of body shots happening. I would believe we talked about cross replacement when we talked about Hanzo, right?
Yeah. Trying
Yep.
to get used to it with Tracer because it's hard to like blink and then readjust to head position. So just trying to get used to that.
Well, essentially, when blinking doesn't change where your crosshair is placed, so if you're already aiming head level, then there's no readjustment needed. If you're already aiming at a head level all the time, because when it comes to crosshair placements, basically you're trying to aim head level all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're doing that, that means that even if you're blinking, that doesn't change the fact that you're aiming head level. So that would just be what I say to that point. But we just want to make sure we are looking to hit heads because we're just hitting a lot of body shots so far. Body shots, right? All body shots. Right, just aiming low on her. Good melees to finish her off. But besides that, good general shots. A lot more body shots. Make sure when we're pulsing, we're thinking about what can get in the way of our pulse. Right, on top of that, we're also up 2 people here. We talked about last time how to know whether or not. Actually, no, we have a Ursa bet in spawn. So actually, this is pretty even. So honestly, pulse is fine here. But when we're using pulse, we want to think about what the heck can stop our pulse. And here we use it when they have 3 things that could stop our pulse. So when we pulse here, right, we pulse while they have immortality down, while they have bubble active, and while they have a shield up, right?
Yeah.
So we
Pointless.
so we pulse when in front of our face we have 3 major things that can block our pulse, right? So we want to think what can block our pulse. So for example, when we're using pulse, we might want to try to wait out immortality field, or we might want to try to kill Baptiste before we go for it. Or we might want to pulse somebody and then destroy the immortality field, right? Those are all options. For bubbles, we might want to wait out the bubbles, right? And make sure she doesn't have them so that when we pulse somebody, she can't just save them for free, right? We also want to make sure we're paying attention to the Reinhardt and his shield because he has a shield. That means that he can block your pulse. So we just want to make sure watching out for it. Here, we don't watch out for anything, and therefore 3 things block it. And then somehow all 3 went away, right? He had a shield, a immortality field, and a bubble, and the bubble broke, the immortality field broke, and he dropped his shield. So that's just you getting away with something when you should not have gotten away with it.
Fair enough. Technically, if he didn't drop his shield, nothing would have happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So that was his bad.
Press it a go. Oh. There you go. Maybe it's just death, man.
Maybe. It happens.
Alright. Trying to make sure that these flanks aren't happening in the middle of fights, right? So flanks, this is completely fine, but you don't want to do it in the middle of fight, because when we're doing it in the middle of a fight, this means that we're going out, we're basically putting ourselves outside of the fight before we can count this out, right? So shooting, shooting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, 4 whole seconds before we are doing anything, and you can see in that time 2 people have died, right? So that could very, very easily be the opposite way, because we're putting us being outside of the fight is putting our team at a disadvantage, right? So we just want to make sure that those rotations aren't happening in the middle of fights most of the time.
So would you recommend if I was on the front line with my team, essentially, or poke some shots in them and go back, or should I just stick with my team?
Repeat. Yes, you're gonna have to repeat all of that because my Discord just crashed and then reopen.
Okay. So I'm saying, like, if I was frontlining with my team, essentially, like, if you were to are you able to rewind for a sec?
Yep.
So, like, right here, or if you go back a little bit more to where I was firing at the team. So would it essentially have been better to just stay on the front line right here, or would
I would have said
blink into the team and try to poke damage out and then
I would have said that I probably would say that we probably should have started off over here, right, rather than doing it in the middle of the fight. So it'd be a good idea if, like, because we kind of sat in front of our Zen for a long time, and honestly, like, we were down like 30 HP. So, you know, you could be coming over here while requesting healing. You could have grabbed the health pack, right? There's a other health pack over here. But instead of just spending all that time sitting in front of the Zenyatta requesting healing, that's time we could be already setting ourselves up on this position. So what that means is now we could have been here as the fight's beginning, not in the middle of the fight, right? And therefore we negate that whole rotation phase because we're doing it in between fights, right?
Gotcha.
Now, if we're finding ourselves like in that situation and we haven't rotated, then I probably say, yeah, you might just want to stick on the front line, because going over here is just wasting a lot of blinks and wasting a lot of time. Try to stay outside. A lot of the times it's seeming like we're getting super... Alright, so we're going to go over this in a second. Alright, so Tracer playstyle stuff. So 240. So when it comes to how you should be approaching the general fight on Tracer, there's a few things we're going to go over. So first off angles. I think we've got that pretty well, but how it's going to work on Tracer is you are not basically on Tracer, you're a mid-range character. We'll get the range down real quick. You're a close to mid-range character, right? That means that you pretty much want to be standing right on this, like, the 10-meter mark most of the time. This is the range where you can hit a blink melee, a blink pulse bomb. This is the range at which you can do your maximum damage without getting it fall off, which you can actually do from here too, right? Maximum damage without getting fall off. And then the further and further away you get, the less and less damage we're doing, where we're getting all the way over here, we're not doing anything. But when we're right inside of things, there's a ton of characters in the game that just do more than us at a close range. So, for example, we're not going to want to get in on this range when they have a Brig or a McCree, because then we get flash or stunned. Or we might want to, and other characters, it's just, when we're right up on top of stuff, you can see this, when we're right here, things are very, very easy to hit. Right? When you're right next to something, it's very difficult to miss it, and therefore we don't want to do that, because that means that it's very, very easy to hit us in turn. So that means that it's very easy for an Ana to sleep us, and it's very easy for us to get flash banged, right, and shot at. So we just don't want to be getting inside of people most of the time, and that's immediately basically what our playstyle looks like. Is we kind of like go blink, 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 right, and then we go blink inside of their team and then start shooting at stuff, right? And then immediately we're forced to recall, and then we're out immediately, right? And that's kind of what it's looking like. So instead, what you want to be doing is making sure you're sticking at a medium range and then looking for opportunities. You're not going in immediately. You're poking, right? We want to take this side angle. We're poking. When we make something low, we can go in aggressively. Excuse the voice crack. When we have pulse bomb, we can go in aggressive, right? When somebody is out of position, we can get aggressive, but until then, we're just poking. Alright, the other thing I want to get into your head is ability management. So basically, when it comes to abilities, you want your abilities before you're going into a fight, right? So before we're about to go in and shoot at stuff, we want to have our abilities so that we can thoroughly confuse people when we're dueling them, right? So for example, if you're going up against McCree, we want to be able to do this and turn around and blink around them, and then do that again, and then again, and then again, right? We want to be able to do that on them. But what happened in that last fight right before we died was that we had just done a like kind of triple blink over, so we went like this, and then immediately went in when we had no blinks, right? That means that we don't have a way to, dodge his abilities, and we're gonna get shot at and die. So we want to make sure that when we're walking somewhere, we can maybe like, let's say we're trying to do the exact same thing, but we can blink over. We're waiting for a second, and then now we're coming in with basically the same time, but now with 3 abilities, right? Instead of 0 abilities. So just be patient and make sure you're going in whenever you're going aggressive, you need your abilities to get aggressive, right? So try to match your aggression to your abilities, and make sure you're recharging them before you're going back into a fight immediately, right?
Gotcha. Would you recommend trying to have like all of your blinks before a fight? I mean, obviously that would be better, but is 2 like sufficient generally?
Two is pretty sufficient. Like the more the better. Usually, if you're forced to, you can always do it on 1 if you're forced to. But if you can control the pacing, right, then you don't need to. So for example, like what we could do is we could do the triple blink over and then just poke for a second while we're recharging them and use cover and not get super aggressive. And then when we get them, then we can get more aggressive. All right, now we can go in and start doing things. All right. So that's you just want to make sure that you're trying not to get it too aggressive when you don't have any available, because if we go in and we don't have any available, we can't dodge out things, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's a big thing to look at for now. And then yeah, so we'll get back into it. We were did they what the okay, I'm on my Treasure account. I was like, did they just I put a patch through because I don't have any imported codes, but then I realized I'm not on the account I usually do stuff on. Alright. So we're up to here. Right, so for example, right here, instead of double blinking in, we could just walk up to the McCree. Right? This means that we have 3 blink. As soon as he looks at us, we're gonna have a 3rd blink up, and then we have blinks. Instead, what we do is we double blink in to where we're right next to him. This puts us within flashbang distance, and it also means that we have 0 blinks, right? So this right there kind of screws us.
Yep.
And then we keep going in, aggro, and we don't have any blinks. Right? So ability management gets us there.
And she's back in the game.
Doing a long flank again. Doing that a lot here.
Oh, we got him. Alright, so here we want to make sure that we're paying attention to where they're going. Right? So here we when we're going on this flank, just keep your ears open and listen. Pay attention to where is my team at, where's the enemy team at. Even if we don't know where the enemy team is at, we can see where our team is at. And why would our team all be looking in one single direction on point if they're coming down main, right?
Yeah,
so,
fair enough. Awareness.
Awareness of our environment, as we don't listen, because we can usually hear if they're coming down lane, we're usually going to hear our team shooting, their team shooting. We're going to hear footsteps near us. We're going to hear, all this stuff. We're going to see our team shooting down main. Besides one May, we're going to, see the enemy team coming down main. If we just instead of immediately, here we kind of don't look. Whereas what we could do is peek and then go, right? And just make sure we're checking and looking at the surroundings. Because here we kind of go on the super long flank when we don't even assess our environment, when their entire team is coming from this side besides one McCree, right? And I don't even think that we know McCree's here. And then on top of that, make sure that when we're checking our corners. So when we go, whenever we're moving, we're constantly kind of looking left and looking right. So here, left opens up faster than the right does. So we look left because there's more on the open here. Then we look right side. Then we look right real quick. We look left. We keep going right, left, right. We're just checking. Whenever there's a little cubby, we're checking right. We're checking left. Okay. We keep going right. We check right. We check left. Right. We just want to make sure that it's just called checking your corners. Because here, if we're not doing that, then McCree just kind of sneaks by us.
Yep.
Okay. Top of that, you can see how, again, our natural crosshair placement is just aiming at the ground. Because you can see it comes up against McCree, and then we're going bam. Right, and then now we're aiming here, and then just no headshots at all. Right, so just keep it head level. That way we're hitting headshots and then another death. And then I'm pretty sure, we maybe last time we talked about, like, we just deaths are bad, right? You whoop-de-doo.
Yep.
So we want to look to cut those out, look to fix them, think about what we did wrong on them.
Back in the fight.
And you can see how our kind of natural crosshair placement again is leaning towards the ground
Low.
here. Like really, really low. So we want to look to keep that up.
Taking the point.
Alright, so we're looking for pulse here.
Taking the point.
When we go for her, look to put yourself directly inside of the person when you are looking for a pulse. So the same way that we were talking about before, how it's incredibly hard to hit something when they're inside of you because they're so massive. That means that we want to be putting ourselves literally here on Mercy, right? When we put ourselves here on Mercy, this makes the pulse bomb very, very difficult to hit. So that's why we want to be doing that on her rather than putting ourselves here. And that means that we don't have to kind of yeet it and then it hits nothing, right? Also, watch for the bubbles again. As another thing, and then we could maybe talk about blink pulsing next time we go to the training range. Very nice. So just going to mention reload habits real quick since I noticed it before as well, is here we're stuck at 4 ammo and we never reloaded. So next time we go to shoot at something, we're not going to have anything. Usually on Tracer, almost always are you going after you shoot at somebody or kill somebody or empty a clip on something, you're reloading. Tracer has very little ammo in her clip and it runs out very, very fast. So on any character in the game, you're reloading every opportunity that you get, but that's almost exaggerated on Tracer because you have so little ammo, right? So pretty much every single time you're reloading. After you shoot at something, you're reloading. So here we just don't reload, and now we're going to go and shoot at the Zarya and then reload, right? So we just want to watch that because that did happen twice. Alright, so as a quick strengths and weaknesses, or ability management, we'll call it that, is looking pretty weak at the moment. Pulse bomb, I only saw one there, and I don't think we held on to it. I don't think we held on to it. It's a 4-minute game. It looks like we charged it very slowly though, because we had in 3 minutes we didn't get a single pulse, right? That's a good indication when you're not really doing much. I guess maybe
we got 2 or 3, I want to say, or 2.
Take that.
No, that was, oh, did we? Oh, I guess we did. Wait. Did we? Oh, we used this one. Oh, because this is our first one. Yeah, so we got 2. Never mind. I forgot about that one. So yeah, that pulse bombs, yeah, looking a little bit weak then because we saw 2 and then both of them didn't do anything.
We're not good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then mechanics, honestly looking fine besides just the crosshair placement stuff. That's the only thing or like making sure we're aiming head level. So tracking is fine. We just aren't hitting headshots is the big major one. Positioning, make sure that we're not rotating in between fights and that we're trying to keep a healthy distance. We're not getting inside of them unless we're looking for a pulse, and we're not standing way too far away. So we just want to find that good distance. Off angles are looking right. Honestly, positioning is probably maybe a medium one at the moment, and then awareness is looking pretty big. As we've had a few big awareness things so far.
Yeah, that's pretty common with our other one as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Again, a very, very long wraparound when we get the exact same effect just by breaking the window here and going through this, right?
Yep.
Same exact effect. Your goal is to just get to their back line, and the same thing happens if we do it here, except for it's just faster. We get to start shooting at things faster, and honestly, side angles are gonna most of the time be better than back angles, as we have an easier job getting back to our team if we need to for healing or protection.
Makes sense.
So if we're behind them, then we only have health packs and that's it. But if we have this, if we're going on from the side, then we have more options to work with because we can go left or right. If we're behind, we don't have as many options and it takes longer. So just like at the beginning of these fights, we're doing a very, very long wrap around.
Let's try that again.
Yeah, I ended up going back there anyway.
Okay, notice again how we're instantly jumping in all their faces. Really focus on the opportunity. Like I probably said, that's a big one with your playstyles. Just the looking for opportunities, right? We're not immediately doing everything because right now it kind of seems like very 0 to 100, where we're not doing anything at all, and then immediately going boom, 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 instantly. Instead, you kind of want to constantly be keeping a steady flow of damage going, and then looking to get aggressive when you see a reason to get aggressive.
Gotcha.
Right, good tracking. Nice blink out of his thing. That one was unnecessary. All right.
Hi. Hey, stop.
Notice again that we don't reload here. 18 ammo, right, and then we do reload here, but it's just, or sorry, we shoot and then reload, right? So notice again, that's just another, I just want you to see that it's a habit that continues. Again, he instantly blinking in from the frontal angle with no support. This is just not how Tracer wants to be played as a character. And when we, keep in mind as well, when we approach from this frontal angle, we become very easy to see and predict, because when they can see us, on the front, and they see us, and they're basically we don't get any surprise advantage. So when we come in there, it's so much easier for them to stun us, from to shoot at us, because they're already looking at us. When we come from the side, we get a surprise advantage because they're not looking at us, and therefore we have an extra second or two before they see us and react to us. The other thing side angles do, most of the time you're going to want a position on the side as Tracer, which I haven't mentioned because we've been doing it most of the time. But most of the time you want to come from the side, because we also, on top of getting a surprise advantage, we get better target priority. Maybe that's something we talked about last time, but target priority, we get to their supports and their DPS instead of just shooting at tanks the entire time, and we come from the side. That makes it easy to do that. And then we also get a crossfire effect, which you just talked about earlier, meaning that our team takes less damage, we take less damage, right, than if we went in by ourselves versus 6 people, right? We split their attention, and it is really good for us. So here we're just going in through main, and that doesn't really do anything for us. Notice as well that we do the blink right before we recall again, so we go shoot, blink past, and then recall, right? So it's just another wasted blink, and every wasted blink is just wasted value, right? And it happens pretty frequently. Make sure you request healing when we're low, right? Glancing at a health bar. Every time we see that, our character, we have a ton of different indicators when we're low, right? That's, I don't see where do we get indicators, right? So when we get damaged, we hear the right. We look at our crosshair, and we have the damage indicator right next to it that tells us which direction we took damage from. We have all around our screen red old marks, right? All indications. We glance at our health bar. We glance at our health bar and go, "Oh snap, we're 39 HP. Let's request healing." Right? That way our supports know where we're at. That we get healing faster. We just want to make sure we're being aware of our health here.
Nailed it.
Okay, make sure we're paying attention to the health bar before we're pulsing. Or not the health bar, so the kill feed, right? The top right corner of your screen. We talked about, we did talk about kill feed watching, right, last time, and I'm pretty sure we also talked about it when we did the other thing as well, to play with me.
Yeah, for sure.
So here you just want to make sure we're paying attention to kill feed, right? That way we know whether or not we've won or lost the fight. Here we're up 3 people, and we use chat. Like the other indications we have as well is that when their entire team is shattered like that, that's where I'm thinking in my head, all right, that's probably we probably are gonna wipe them on this. Let's see what happens, right? Or like if you get a full 6-man grab, you might, and like unless they use like something to counter it, you might want to think, okay, well, we got some picks, we got a big fat ult, we might want to reconsider it or hesitate with it. So it's just something to keep in mind. We also use trance there. All right.
Much better.
And notice again that we're kind of going in 1v6. We're going in immediately without blinks available. Approaching from the frontal angle, right? I'm not even going to pause it here. I'm just going to comment on it as we go.
Back in the fight.
Okay, so we're coming from the side, which is fine. Maybe instead of, maybe instead of that second blink there, we could blink once, and then we could just walk it so that when we're getting here, it's honestly not gonna be too like we're at max. It takes us an extra second or two, right, to walk that distance because we were like right here. That's honestly not that far away. We jump this, we come around the corner. That's an extra 2 seconds, right? And in that time, that gets us our blink back. It means they're coming in with 3 blinks rather than coming in with 1 blink, right? Big difference between that. So just anytime you're coming into a fight, we probably want to wait half a second while we're rotating so that we get the blinks back.
Makes sense.
All right, I like the target priority there. That's good. But again, notice that we're doing this when our team's not distracting them at all. Therefore, they have Hog turnaround, they have Soldier turnaround, right? Which just put the Brig coming from behind that we didn't even notice. I didn't even notice Brig. She's probably gonna get us here. We also try to make it out main. I'd probably say that the better idea would be try to go right side here, right? I think that you can see that, just watching the replay, right? Main is super, super far away before we get to any safe cover. Going right side here just gets us around the corner, and then boom, we're safe, right? So,
yep.
Just big difference there. Just make sure thinking and paying attention to what's happening. Awareness, again, just being a big thing going on. Because we're not really syncing up with our team at all. Okay. Sitting on main a lot, we should be using this time to try to be like rotating along the sideline instead of approaching from main.
I think I was trying to coordinate the Grav and Zarya's ult.
Oh, okay.
Zarya.
All right. I mean, that's definitely not a bad move either. Oh, but keep in mind as well that you don't necessarily need to come from the main core team to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, now that's unfortunate. We kind of blinked into that. It was like right as we blinked. Some deaths have something. Not every death will though. Okay, make sure when we're pushing this fight that we're paying attention to who's alive, who's dead. A 1, 2, 3, 4 versus 1, 2 is a lost fight, especially when Zenyatta is 1 HP. So at this point, we probably don't want to be in here. This is pretty much lost, and we kind of went in without paying attention to who's winning or who's losing, and we keep going in, and then that potentially could have resulted in us dying, right? Especially if they're better players. So again, just paying attention to our surroundings, another awareness thing, right? Awareness keeps stacking and stacking up, where it's just constantly being a big problem here.
Yep.
Okay, so we have Pulse Bomb. We still have the grab, so we're looking for that combo. Massive.
Soldier uses ult there, so I try to get behind cover and let him waste it.
Yep. Good decision. Okay. Another kind of perfect example of what we're doing wrong here is one single blink, and we use that one single blink to go boom directly into the enemy, like the face of the enemy team, where this is the easiest place for Soldier to helix us and right, like if Soldier helixes us and melees us, we're dead. Junkrat shoots us and melees us, we're dead, right? This is like the easiest place for them to hit us if we're doing this, right? We're putting ourselves directly in their face again with no blinks at all, right? So just another, and then on top of that, we're doing it when the fight has not started, coming from the frontal angle. So this is just like a culmination of like all 4 things kind of play style wise we've been doing wrong. I probably say that's a pretty good word or category that we're struggling with a lot of the stuff. Besides the 3 main things I'd say we're struggling with right now are awareness, ability usage, and play style. Because so far there's a lot of play style stuff that's coming into play, and those are the 4 main ones: approaching from the front, jumping directly into their face, going in without blinks, And then, well, I don't forget what and then going in with when our team's not even fighting, right? When it's like a 1v3 or 1v4, right? So we just want to make sure that we're cutting out those, and that's gonna mean a much more healthier play style where we're actually doing things, approaching the fight correctly.
Definitely.
Step right up.
Enemies over
Experience tranquility. Hordes and Crusaders! Don't move.
All right. So that was a pretty short one. Yeah. Do you have any others?
Let me see here. Sec. I have some McCree footage that I also have.
All right. Are you wanting to go over him at all?
Yeah, we could do that real quick. One sec. Sending it over to you, hang on.
Alrighty. Let me get this up.
I feel like I struggle quite a bit with like just general mechanics as well. You know, when I'm like playing McCree and stuff, I feel like I'm not hitting shots that they should be hitting, and I feel like if I was hitting those shots, I would have been getting a lot more value. You know, so I'm definitely working in that aerial trainer, and that's definitely helped me quite a bit. But definitely still got to put some work into mechanics, which I'm sure just comes with playing the character more.
Yeah.
Attackers incoming. Defend
Let's get a
objective
move on.
Make sure you use your flash there, right? That way we can, stun her and mean that we get the secure the kill and don't let her get away. So make sure we're paying attention that we have our flash available and use it pretty much anytime someone steps within your range, unless you're specifically using it for something. Here we kind of play super passive. It kind of feels like, so we kind of sit back and shoot, and then here we kind of walk around and we don't shoot, we don't shoot, and we don't shoot. Okay, now we're shooting, shoot. And now we back up when, there we shot. How much ammo do we have? This is another bad habit that you don't want to be in is reloading when you have ammo left. So here we have 5 ammo, right? And we have things actively be shooting at, right? Or actually, sorry, 4 ammo, right? And we have things to shoot at right in front of our face. And then we back up and reload, or sorry, excuse me again, 3 ammo, right? But point still remains. Reloading comes when reloading is needed, or reloading comes when you have a lull in a fight, right? So whenever you have nothing to shoot at because nobody's on your screen, then we reload, right? So that we have ammo when we do have something on our screen. When there is something on our screen to shoot at, we don't want to reload when we still have ammo. That way we can keep shooting. So that's just another thing there. And then we see the Moira,
Gotcha.
and then we don't shoot here, and she fades away. And then here we kind of just like sit back and don't really do much, right? Keep in mind that so we glance at it and then we're not doing anything, and then we're sitting around and we're not doing anything. Here we could be, to get to the fight faster, we could be rolling, right? Use your roll as mobility, right? Again, same thing on Tracer. We have roll for 3 purposes: to ghost them more faster, to dodge a shot, or to reload your ammo. And here we could just be using it to get to the fight faster. So in that fight, we had a big old case of actions per minute, right? Did we talk about actions per minute at all?
No, not yet.
No.
But pretty sure I understand the
Yeah.
concept of it. You want to try to do as many actions per minute as possible.
Exactly, right? We just want to be doing as much as possible. And here there's just a whole lot of time where we weren't really doing much, right? Where we just kind of sitting around. So we want to make sure we're trying to be efficient with every single second of our gameplay, because that's kind of how high rank players operate, is they're efficient with every single second of the game. So we want to be doing that same thing and be efficient with every single second of the game.
Securing the objective.
Yeah, a lot of body shots, right? Look at where Crosshair's at. Make sure to shoot at her. Make sure you're flashbanging her. Here we just, again, kind of stop shooting. We reload when we have 5 ammo left, right? We shoot at her. So watch this again, right? We'll go in, actually, no, I want to watch it in slow motion so you can see this, right? So we're coming in this fight here, and we're going to put in 0.5, right? We shoot at her, we see her, we shoot at her once. We immediately reload when we have 5 ammo left, right? This just flat out is wasting time where we could be shooting at her and killing her, right? She uses her Wraith, whatever. Here we could just walk towards her and flash, or we could roll towards her and flash, right? And kill her that way. But here we just kind of don't do anything, and we don't shoot, we don't flash, right? We don't do anything besides we just kind of back up. So just make sure that we backing up is perfectly fine. That's good. Just shoot while you're doing it, right? There's no reason to just back up without doing anything. So again, it's just kind of like actions per minute where we're just kind of like waltzing around without being efficient with how we're doing it, right?
Gotcha.
Okay, pre-aiming where we know people are going to be. So there's 2 steps across our placement. Aiming at head level, and pre-aiming where we know people are going to be. So here, right, people aren't going to be in the floor. People are going to be up top here, right, where exactly where Soldier's going to run to in a second. So with our crosshair, we want to be pre-aiming right up there at head level around the corner, so that if anybody pops up there, we're already aiming there, and therefore it's a much easier shot. Here we kind of aiming at the stairway, and then that means that it requires adjustment. And again, like, if we are hitting headshots, it's very, very infrequent. Probably I'd say our crit rate, like of how much of the time we're critting, I'd probably say it's probably around like 3-5%, something like that.
Yeah,
Whereas
pretty low.
you want that a lot higher, right? You want that to be a bit higher than that. That way you're doing more and you're getting more kills. Headshots are very, very important. You want to make sure we're hitting them. Make sure you're requesting healing when you're low. Woo, headshot.
Got one.
The payload has reached the checkpoint. This will restore you.
Don't be afraid to flash him. Flash him as soon as you see him, and hold on to it there.
Surrender to my will.
Massive high noon. Good job not holding on to it. So timing wise, with ults, I don't think that the timing is too poor so far. I think we need to pay attention to whether or not we've won or lost. Ults honestly is looking like it's kind of in the middle with things that we need to work on. It's definitely not the biggest thing, but it's definitely not the, it's definitely, we're not perfect with it as well.
Come here and get stabilized.
Yeah, for sure.
Bingo.
It's just like I feel like sometimes I feel really good with McCree. Like I hit a lot of shots, and then sometimes I'm like, man, I should be hitting all these right now.
Yep.
Just whipping them all.
And consistency is something that comes with practice, with time, but it also comes with understanding the fundamentals. When you're going purely off of basically off of instinct or purely off of muscle memory, then that means that you have no basic how do I say this? You basically have no ground level. You have no fundamentals, and when you have no fundamentals, when you're not doing good and you're tired, you're out of it, you're not mechanically doing well because you're kind of because your mechanics honestly um are just relying based on purely instinct, right? When you're not doing well, you're not going to do well. When you have the fundamentals of good crosshair placement, which is not something that relies on instinct, but relies on thought, right, and effort and focus. Because it's not something you use your brain for. It's not something that just happens, right? So therefore, that kind of fundamental groundwork of aim makes it so that when you're doing poorly, you're not going to drop all the way to the bottom where you're hitting no shots at all. Instead, you're going to maybe have a bit like a kind of in the medium, right? Now, it's going to definitely help a lot if you're in a really good, because those definitely happen to me too, right? Where you're just having a fantastic day where you're hitting every single shot. But on the days where you're not having a fantastic day, you want to make basically your low of mechanics as high as possible, right? You're making your average or your low higher and higher and higher by having good crosshair placement and having good fundamentals. That way, you're not just dropping to the bottom every time you're not having a good day, because that's how you get inconsistencies. Is where you're only relying purely on instinct and purely on just, I go pew pew, right? Um, that's how you get inconsistencies when it comes to aim. So we want to make sure we're focusing on our crosshair placement and making sure that we're keeping them in our crosshair in the right spot. That makes shots easier. On top of that, how often do you say you play the game again?
Uh, God, it really varies. I'd say probably like average right now, realistically, probably 15 to 20 hours, if that.
A week?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, is every day?
Not every day, no.
All right, I probably recommend at least like a free for all, right? In a day. Like if you're busy the entire day, sometimes like almost guarantee, then sometimes you can't, right? There's the extremes, but I probably fairly say with certainty that there's you can fit 10 minutes into your schedule of it, and mechanics gets rusty incredibly fast. Mechanics is the fastest thing in like out of anything that will just deteriorate fast, because again, it's a muscle memory. It's not some besides the crosshair placement, it's not something that you think about and you mentally remember. It's something that you're constantly has to be remembered with your arm, right? It's your muscles. So therefore, it's going to deteriorate very very quickly, and even one day away from playing can make your aiming less consistent. So just playing once a day for 10 minutes can help make that a little bit more consistent. So that'd just be a
Definitely.
recommendation there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then we'll go for an extra couple
Well, like
minutes
something
here.
something that normally happens with me is like I'll play, God, maybe 2, 3 times a week, and then just play longer sessions. But a lot of
Yeah.
times it's at night, so it's like I get tired or whatever, and I'm like
Yeah.
maybe not playing at my peak.
Mhm.
So that probably doesn't
Yeah.
help.
The other thing that you can try is especially if you're playing a bit more, is like if you're trying to climb high, play on your main or play ranked when you're at your peak, not when you feel like trash. So purposefully abstain from playing comp when you feel like utter garbage. So like when you're super super dead tired, or you know that you're having a terrible day, don't play comp, and therefore you're basically I don't even know what the wording for this. I know there's wording for this, but I can't know what it is. But you're basically making it so that when you're playing comp, you're only playing comp when you're having an average day or a really good day, and that kind of tilts your SR up higher, because it
Yeah,
means that you're playing better. When you're playing like garbage, you're gonna and then on top of that, that's gonna win you more games, which gives you more confidence, which means that you're not as tilted, and therefore also will have a higher effect as well. So it can kind of escalate that as well if you're just winning
definitely.
more. But if you're playing like when you're garbage, or let's just say tired, for example, like when you're super tired, then you're going to lose games, then you're going to get tilted, then you're going to go on a losing streak, then you're going to get a confidence decrease because you feel like, oh snap, I can't do anything right, and that sends you into a downward spiral rather than an upward spiral. So try to, like, when you have those times that happen to you, either get another account and play ranked on that account where it doesn't matter, or just play quick play or something else, right? Or if honestly your SR doesn't matter at all to you, then just keep playing whatever. Like sometimes I've had that. It really depends on kind of what your goals and priorities are and how that works out. All right, we're gonna go and do the wrap up review as well as the main points of the session
For
here.
sure.
So ability usage, big thing here. Basically, just make sure that we're not using them all up all the time. Use your blinks for movement and for dodging abilities, right? Or shots, right? And we don't want to just go blink, 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 blink constantly, because then we just never have blinks to do anything with, right? Instead, we want to conserve them a little bit. Make sure that when we're going in on going in on off angle or about to get aggressive, that we have all our blinks, but we're not using them and then going in immediately without them. Instead, we want to poke a little bit, get our blinks back, or we could even if we're trying to move over to somewhere, like we said before, we're just blinking over and that blink to come back up, and then engaging. That way, we have our blinks available, right? Make sure with our blinks and recall so that we're not just going blink recall, right? Because that wastes the blink. Make sure we're trying not to blink into walls, and we're trying to make sure we're just basically just not wasting them by another thing that we did was just we'd blink when no one was looking at us or we had no reason to blink, right? So just keep in mind when do we actually need to blink and make sure you're not wasting them, because that's going to allow us to make better plays and whatnot, right? Now moving on from there, pulse bombs. Keep in mind, I don't know if you're aware of this tech or whatever, but you have blink melee, which is blinking and meleeing. This is going to be around the 10-meter mark where that you're able to do this. You probably no, yeah, it has to be 10 meters here. You can also do it behind them, like that. For example, you turn around, right, and do it.
Yep.
But we can also substitute this with the pulse bomb. So we blink, pulse bomb, blink away, right? And then that way we're getting in right on top of them, right? Make sure when you're pulsing it's right here, so it's really easy to hit, right? And then that can get you in really fast to do it as well. Make sure when you're pulsing that you're paying attention to what can block my pulse, right? Shields, bubbles, immortality field. All three of those are currently being used, right?
Yep, for sure.
Besides that, I like the timing with it. Make sure that we're not using it when fights are won and lost, so pay attention to that as well. And then that's it for that. Mechanics, general tracking is looking pretty good, but make sure that we're aiming head level, right? Because that means that we're hitting more natural headshots. Make sure we're constantly aiming here. Even while we're blinking, if we're aiming here, then we're still aiming here, right? We're still aiming in the exact same place. We just want to make sure we're keeping it at head level so that we're hitting headshots, right? Big major thing. And make sure as well that we're aiming where we know people are going to be. If he's top right, we're aiming top right, so that when he turns the corner, right, we're already aiming at his head. Therefore, the shots become very easy to hit, right? We're already aiming there. Right. Besides that, general tracking was good. Focus on your crosshair placement because that ups your kind of low points. It means that you have good fundamentals to work with. So whenever I had a trash day where I just wasn't feeling it, I'd be okay. Really concentrate on your mechanics, but then also your crosshair placement. I tell myself that. I'd say, okay, I'm not hitting any shots. Think about where your crosshair is placed, right? And when I did that, then that ups my fundamentals, right? And it means that I'm basically thinking with my brain on how to use my aim when I'm having a trash day just instinctively, right? Now, on top of that, we talked about target priorities slightly. Just make sure you're shooting at DPS and supports, not tanks, and then that's pretty much. Oh, and then action. We'll stuff in actions per minute into this category as well. Make sure that you are, actively trying to do things, right? So make sure that you're trying to do as much as possible, right? You're not taking AFK times where you're not doing anything. So you're constantly trying to do things, right? So poke, and poke, right? Until you get an opportunity to do something, and make sure we're constantly shooting and trying to do stuff. Be efficient with your time, right? Now moving on, positioning. Positioning wise, right? Don't come from the main angle, instead come from a side angle. This way we can get to their back line, and we can also get a surprise advantage and a crossfire effect, right? And on top of that, don't immediately blink straight into people. Try to keep like a 10-meter distance between yourselves. We kind of like went straight in on top of somebody. Instead, keep this distance, right? We blink on top of them
Yep.
if we're trying to go for melee, or if we're going for a pulse, or if we have another reason to, but we're not going to want to do that like all the time immediately. Instead, keep a healthy distance that puts us out of range of like flashbang and bash and makes it harder for people to hit us. All right. Now, on top
Definitely.
of that, just make sure we're keeping good, cover usage as well. And then awareness, a whole lot of stuff in the awareness category, right? So starting off with HUD watching, make sure that we're paying attention, right? And then when we're low, that we're pressing I need healing, and then we're looking for health pack or something like that, right? We're just sometimes we just go without doing anything about our health, or we wouldn't even notice. Make sure you're watching kill feed, right? Just a quick reminder, right? It's 1 to 2 advantage disadvantage, 2 to 3 won or lost fight. Don't use ults when you won or lost a fight. Make sure you're paying attention to that, right? Then on from there, really this is probably a big old one here, is make sure you're paying attention to where your team is at and where the enemy team is at, right? Because we made a lot of aggression mistakes where we kind of went in aggressively when we didn't have our team, or we just went in 1v6 when our team wasn't there. And we also just had multiple times where we just weren't aware of where the enemy team was at, or specific characters were at. Like Briggs snuck up behind us, McCree was kind of to our side. Just make sure being aware of where everyone's at on the battlefield, right? Paying attention to our surroundings. Don't just kind of slowly walk around doing a slow pan, but we're looking left, looking right, clearing our corners. So when we go top, we're looking left, looking right, right? We see a person, we shoot at them. Right, we want to clear our corners, we want to look around us, do 360s, not just stare in a straight line and tunnel vision on our crosshair. And then that's going to up our awareness of our surroundings. On from there, I think just pay attention to your audio as well, and listening for footsteps, sounds of people walking or of people shooting, right? And blinking off the map. Make sure that you're paying attention to gunshots, paying attention to ults, paying attention to our abilities. All right. Now
Definitely.
McCree, not too much to say about his ult, not too much to say about his ability. So honestly, not much. We didn't go over McCree for long, and the good ult use the one time I saw him use it. So not too much to talk about with him. Just make sure that we're not that we're using our flashbang a little bit more, right? And we're using our roll to get places faster, right? And
Definitely.
then on top of that, just what was the other thing? It's just make sure that we're concentrating on our aim, because that seems to be something that you're struggling a little bit with, right? More so on McCree than Tracer, right?
Yep.
So main points. Probably. Oh, actually, the last thing being, I don't usually include this, but I'll include it for this time. But just kind of play style, on Tracer, right? Particularly here is, make sure when your play style, there's a bunch of different things to add into this. Don't blink immediately into people. Don't play aggressive when you don't have blinks. Look to recharge your blinks before you're getting aggressive. Look to play as an opportunist, right? So don't go in immediately. Instead, poke, and get ult charge. Try to get something low until you see an opportunity. Someone who's low, someone's out of position. When you have your pulse, when you make somebody low, right? Then we can get aggressive, right? On top of that, don't go in from the main angle and come from side angles, right? So that's just kind of all play style thingy-mabobs that kind of all went into different categories, but summarized in play style on Tracer. So I'd probably say number one, we're going to put playstyle as the on Tracer specifically, not necessarily McCree, because that really was a big deal on our Tracer, was just kind of how we were approaching everything, right? It was just kind of off. And number two, we're going to put at awareness. Number three, we're going to put at ability usage. Number four, we're going to put at mechanics. Number five, at ability, number 5 we're gonna put at ultimate usage, and then no, we're missing something there. What am I missing? And then positioning, we'll put as the last, right? Positioning honestly wasn't too terrible. It's just kind of those two tiny ones that fit into everything else, right? Any questions about anything we've gone over?
No, I do have one question though. So I would probably categorize myself as more of a wrist aimer.
Yep.
I notice I'm like kind of, I don't know, I'm just kind of lazy with like doing big arm movements and whatnot. Obviously that being said, I use a little bit of a heavier mouse, so it's easier for me to do smaller movements with my wrists and whatnot. Do you recommend? I mean, right now I'm on a sensitivity of 6. I mean, do you feel like that is sufficient?
What's your DPI?
I normally stay at about 800.
All right, that is a pretty low sensitivity. That's like in comparison, I have a 4.5 sensitivity by 800, so yours is only 1.5 higher than mine. That's not too much higher than mine, and I would probably say that mine's a pretty low sensitivity. So I'd probably say yours is just on the higher end of low sensitivities. So I would say that you should probably either up your sensitivity if you're wanting to stick with wrist aiming, but the other thing is I would probably recommend trying to move towards arm aiming, as it is a little bit more active and allows you to do more. Basically, how arm aiming works is it means that basically anytime you're just walking around doing anything, or when somebody's right next to you, you're using your arm, right? Or maybe even at a medium distance. Now, when something gets far away from you, you plop your wrist down on the table, and this gives you more control. When I have my wrist down on the table, I can only do this, and that's it. Right? This gives you more control over how I'm moving my crosshair, and it means that I'm a little bit more precise with my movement, right? But then when I'm trying to look around, I use my entire arm, and now I can do this, right? So now I can do pretty much a what can I do? Yeah, I can do a complete 360, right? Doing that. But when I am only using my wrist, I can only do this, which limits it a lot, right? So that's the arm aimers are never exclude. I mean, it probably say they're doing it a little bit wrong if they're exclusively arm aiming. But most of the time, when you're an arm aimer, you're using your wrist and your arm, so that when we're trying to hit something precise, we're using our wrist. When we're just moving around, we're using our arm, right? That way we can make faster shots. We can check corners. You can do more things. If you're exclusively trying to use your wrist, you almost need to use your a high sensitivity, or else you're just not going to be able to. That can be a big problem when it comes to awareness, right? Because you're not looking around you enough, because you're not be able to, because you're moving so slowly. So I probably say you have to adjust one way or the other. You can't have a and be a wrist aimer. Those just kind of don't fit well together. You need to
exactly.
have a higher sensitivity, which also on top of that, higher sensitivities and wrist aiming just become very inaccurate when you're talking about, or not very, they're like, for the most part, most professionals agree that a lower sensitivity is going to be better when it comes to hitting precise shots like headshots on as hit scan characters. It doesn't matter if you're on a tank that does like Monkey or Ryan, or like some other character, Lucy. Those characters don't really need a low sensitivity, but most characters agree if you're playing hit scan characters, you're probably going to want a low sensitivity. There are the exceptions, like for example Pine in the Overwatch League. He had a super high sensitivity. He was a hit scan player for an Overwatch League team, but it's not very often. Most of the times you're going to have lower sensitivities, but if you're using a lower sensitivity, you probably want to rotate over to arm aiming and try to get used to that. That all makes sense?
Gotcha. It totally makes sense. For sure.
All right. Any other questions?
Nope, that's it, man. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Appreciate all the help.
No problem, man.